At 10:30 a.m. on October 30th, 2005, a 33-year-old pastor named Kyle Lake stood on a stage inside of the University Baptist Church in Waco, Texas. Kyle had just finished delivering that morning's sermon to his congregation, which included about 800 people. And now he was about to welcome a new member, a young woman. Kyle had been the pastor of this church for the last 7 years. He was known as being a very thoughtful and educated pastor who was also known to be quite fun and progressive. He often would play pranks on the congregation, and people liked that. And also his wife was an attendee at the church, as were his 3 little kids, who at the moment, as he was up on stage, they were across the hall attending kids' Bible study. Welcoming a new member into this church had become a very big deal for him. He in fact had this special ceremony he would perform for each and every new member. And so today, Kyle was about to do this ceremony with this new member. And he calls this woman up and she walks up to the front of the stage. And then Kyle moved to the very center of the stage where the actual ceremony was going to take place. And he was about to call the woman up to join him in the center of the stage when there was a malfunction. The malfunction itself was not really a huge deal. All it did was just stop Kyle for a second, and quickly he saw a fix that didn't even require him to leave the stage. However, the instant he actually made the fix, he just began to scream. Now, at first, nobody took this seriously because their pastor was known for playing pranks, but then he began screaming, "Help me!" And at that point, it sort of clicked for the whole congregation that this was not a joke. And so immediately it was like the church spiraled into chaos and confusion. People are bowing their heads, praying for his safety. Others are sprinting out of the church, and still more were calling 911. And then by the time the paramedics showed up, it was like people still had no idea what actually was happening. Within a few days, they were able to figure out what happened, and it surprised everyone. So the special ceremony that Kyle would perform for every new member was a baptism. And so when Kyle moved to the very center of the stage, he actually was stepping into the baptismal pool. Picture like a hot tub, waist-high water, it's warm water. However, before this woman actually got to the pool, Kyle has this malfunction. And all it was is his lapel mic shut off. And because the church he was in was huge, sound really didn't travel well. He needed a microphone to project his voice, and so he had to find another microphone. Luckily, there was a stand with a microphone in it right within arm's reach. Kyle grabbed it. However, what Kyle didn't know was there actually was a second malfunction, and that was that the heaters of the baptismal pool that kept the water warm were damaged. The water in that pool had become electrically charged. And so the instant Kyle grabbed that microphone, he grounded the electricity in the pool. Basically, he created a pathway for the electricity to travel through his body. When he began to scream, that was him being electrocuted. Kyle unfortunately did not survive. As for Kyle's wife, she watched her husband be killed. She ultimately sued the electrical company that installed those heaters in the baptismal pool, and she would settle for an undisclosed amount of money.